So hi everybody and welcome. My name is Kirsten Winkler and I'm the founder of EDUKWEST. Today I am joined, at least virtually joined, by Tim Brady, and he's one of the three founders of one of the few, we should say, incubators dedicated to K12. So therefore, Tim, welcome to the program. Welcome to EDUKWEST.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So before we start talking a little bit more about the program and the objectives of Imagine K12, let's go a little bit into your own background, which is maybe connected to then setting up an incubator as we have Imagine K12.
Sure. One of my first jobs. I've been an engineer, and all my jobs have been tech related in some way. Mm-hmm. I worked in the internet industry for a long time at Yahoo. Really enjoyed it. Was on the operating side. After that, I went and I ran an educational nonprofit called EDUKWEST. Fell in love with the education industry and how interesting it is. With the obvious upside of helping people, and enjoyed that, and was hoping to combine those two things, kind of the operating side in technology and education. So that kind of is what led me to Imagine K12.
And as I said in the little intro, that Imagine K12 is one of the very few incubators really dedicated to K-12. And why for you, or in your opinion, is that the space you want to focus on, you want to put your effort in? What is the status quo that you really say, okay, we need more startups and also foster ideas, especially dedicated to K-12?
Sure. My two partners and I, we went through kind of the beginning of the consumer internet phase, and in a short period of time, within 10 years, all of our lives, we're talking via Skype, right? Mm-hmm. All of our lives have been dramatically changed, and for the most part, for the better. When you look at what's going on, at least in the U.S., the K-12 system, there has been no movement in technology at all. They are stuck back a few decades back. So what we're trying to do is kind of bring the technology that's available and help bring that to K-12 in whatever way we can to help the system for the better, to become more efficient, to help kids learn. Our ultimate goal is to help student outcomes. So that's kind of the overarching goal of our company. Mm-hmm.
And we have seen your, let's say, first class sort of graduating from the program just recently. Maybe before we go really in what you're focusing on with the program and how you help your startups, in K-12 itself, I understand that in the States and, over here in Europe, it's not so much different, that there is, of course, the system that often it is, or decisions are taken based on the individual state, sometimes even district or school. So, for example, I also get the feedback that sometimes a school principal says to their teachers, well, you decide whether you want to use a certain technology in the classroom. There is no regulation, let's say, against it, but you have to figure it out yourselves. So right. Isn't that incredibly difficult for your startups when they want to create and therefore approach schools or officials with their projects? That they have to,
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why it hasn't happened to date, why it takes special effort like what we're doing in trying to make that happen. the purchasing patterns is, distribution and the purchasing patterns is kind of what you're talking about. It's a big barrier for sure. The system is set up not for startups. Let's just say that. The teachers who are the people that would use the technology are not the ones buying it. At least traditionally, you've had to go through usually you sell through the superintendent of all 16,000 school districts in the country, which is a tall task for a startup. And that's why, what you see right now are three very large publishing companies dominating the space. They have huge sales forces and the relationships that they've built up over decades. One of the things that has changed is, the internet is everywhere, and in every school. And what you're finally seeing is a generation of teachers now entering the profession who have grown up with the internet. They know of nothing else. And so when they go into their profession, they expect to be able to use the tools that they've always used. So I think what that does is it affords startups new opportunities at innovating in business models, giving tools away free to teachers with the hope of monetizing it later on, either through upselling to the districts rather than going superintendent down. We're now thinking maybe to the teachers who now sell up, or you're able to by helping the teacher, you're able to get to parents who are trying to solve similar problems at home. Well, helping their child learn or behavior things, or anyway. So the internet's really allowed an opportunity to kind of bypass the traditional distribution and purchasing system. That said, there's still an issue. Teachers for the most part, don't have purchasing power, and they're the ones using the content. So our hope is that changes. There's a big movement, at least in the ed reform movement here in the States, of trying to tie teacher performance with student results. If your kids learn, then your pay goes up. What we're hoping is with that, if that movement continues, that's tied to some purchasing power, right? If you expect the teacher to deliver results, then you should also give the teacher some autonomy to buy and use what they think they need to deliver those results. So it's not quite here yet, but we're hoping that is one of the things that's an outcome of that movement.
Yeah, definitely sounds interesting. I mean, if you expect, and rightfully so, as parents and in the end schools as well, that your teachers perform, and of course measure teachers' performance over student success, then I, as a teacher, would agree that I needed some autonomy or power in decision making, which tools I see most appropriate for my students' success and then also my own success. And I think you mentioned a very interesting point there just before. So you would say, due to the budget cuts, and I think that's going on in education anywhere in the world at the moment, that the two business models that work best are either the ones that give something for free to schools, and if the schools then decide to have some premium options, they may pay a fee or a certain rate per month for that. On the other hand, not targeting directly the schools, but targeting the parents, because in the end, everybody, let's say, as a parent in an increasingly competitive society, I want my kid to have this extra push maybe, or this extra help if I can afford it. So you think I need to come with a mostly free solution and then figure out the business model later on?
I think that's one of the opportunities. That's one of the things that's changed. So teachers, for the most part, are there's a lot of inefficiencies in their day, right? So a lot of these tools, to say the least,
don't tell them.
Right? So saving them time is something they want, right? You hear these horror stories of teachers staying up, all night to do a lesson plan, and and something like Better Lesson comes along and helps them save time, of course they're going to want to adopt something like that. That's just one example. I think there's hundreds of examples out there. So by offering that and offering it for free, because again, teachers, really don't have purchasing power, but they want to save time, and everyone moving into the profession are almost by definition tech savvy, and so are fine at going online, downloading something and using that to their benefit. And then once there are enough, say, teachers in a school or in a district, the upsell becomes easier. And even for the superintendents we've talked to have been very excited about that, because they usually say, well, I sit and I listen to these sales pitches, I try to imagine what the teachers want, and then I have to go convince the teachers to use it and push it down. Superintendents are very excited when a bunch of teachers say, hey, we're all using this product, can you buy this kind of additional feature? It actually makes it easier on the superintendent as well. So it's an opportunity. It's certainly not the only business model out there, but it's something that has changed with the ubiquity of connectivity.
Me working mostly with startups, and of course having a look into like what's new in education technology and technology itself, I think I am sometimes a little bit too ahead of the curve probably of what is the status quo in the classroom, but maybe also because you're so closely working together, of course, with your class of startups, and have a better look in the classroom. What is the current situation there? Is it still that you have those PC labs? Is it that they are allowed to use smartphones? Does it go in the tablet space? Where do you see the most, let's say, realistically, the most promising technologies that will also be implemented in the classroom and stay for some time?
Sure. I mean, the answer to the first part of that question is it's all over the map in terms of where we're at, right? You still have the situations where, a decade ago, someone wanted to spend money on technology, so they bought a computer for a teacher, and it's sitting in the back of the classroom and not integrated into the curriculum or in anything, right? It's probably a play toy when it's raining and the kids have to stay in, they fight gets to use the computer, and that's probably it. So really from what I've seen, what's holding things back is more training than the availability of devices. So I think that's a big thing, and it depends on who you talk to. Certainly the charter school movement here tend to be pioneering certain things and are a little more active in tying in the technology into the classroom and using it as part of, let's not say the curriculum, but as a way to teach. And so we find that those charter schools tend to be a little bit further ahead of the curve, which is why we've found working with them a little bit easier, because they're actually actively looking for stuff.
Yeah, I hear that quite a bit from international schools as well, where it's simply also part of the ecosystem or the infrastructure that parents pay a certain amount of money per month, and therefore the system is a little bit that they can also that they can afford it and they are used to paying, so they also expect the schools providing their students with the newer technology they are used from home anyway. So it's a little bit less this disconnectedness between my normal social life and my school life, which should of course not exist.
Yeah, and one of the movements that I find really interesting, and I'll be paying close attention to see how it goes, is this notion of bringing your own device to school. Okay. I think we've seen, let's do one-to-one laptops, tablets, these are great, and it goes on, and there are problems associated with each one of those, mostly from managing it from the school standpoint. But now we're starting to see people explore the notion of bringing your own device. So, there's a greater sense of ownership and the kids are responsible for their own IT for the most part. That'll be interesting. And that really kind of backs up what you're saying is this, kind of this in school and out of school become the same thing. It's the same device. It's your device, something you're very familiar with. And you're incentivized to take care of it because it's yours, and not the school's, will be, hopefully one of the things that kind of unlocks, the movement of all this stuff into the classroom.
I think you mentioned the challenges a little bit. Of course, then everybody having such a device, then we are talking about operating systems and this whole discussion about how open do we need to be. But in K-12, of course, we have to pay attention that the kids are not yet adults, so but it's an interesting movement. I definitely agree. So then let's speak a little bit more in detail about Imagine K12 and what you do. But I think it was good that at the beginning we set a little bit the tone and see your mindset and attitude towards technology. So about your first class, I need, of course, to ask, how did you set your objectives for which startups or from the mass, I imagine, of startups who applied, which ones to take in your first program, and how did this process take place?
Sure. So the way we work is, we have this online application that anyone can fill out. And that was this first class that was due back at the end of April. We read through those applications, chose there were roughly 200. We interviewed 35, and we ultimately chose 10 to incubate. So that was kind of the application process. In terms of what we look for, when we first started this, we talked to a bunch of people in the Valley and outside Silicon Valley and outside of Silicon Valley, and what we heard over and over is, venture capital isn't active in education. We would love to see that happen, but there's no good ideas or companies out there. And then you talk to, so it's a bit of a chicken and the egg, because the companies aren't going to happen unless the VC money's out there. And there's Silicon Valley, there's a really attractive sector called the consumer internet. If you're interested in starting a company, right, there's a lot to do and there's a lot of funding out there. So
it's not necessarily that it's the easiest thing or the most appealing to investors when you say I do something in education. Yes, so
right.
But
yeah,
I think it's coming.
So I think great engineering talent is something we heard that was missing. In this industry. Most of that talent was going over to the consumer internet side.
Yeah.
We met a ton of young, people in education with great ideas, but without engineering talent to execute on those ideas. So one of the things we wanted to do, what we want to do, is attract that engineering talent, entrepreneurial engineering talent into this industry, the education industry. So what we did in the application process is screen for that talent, right? When we interviewed the people, we were looking for great engineering talent, and that was one of the big cuts that we were looking for. And then the other one, that was probably the most important thing when we looked at it. And then the other thing is we wanted to choose a set of companies that didn't overlap, because when we got all the companies together, we wanted them to be able to share kind of common problems and not have to hold their cards too close to their vest. Because we see that as, learning along with your cohort is a powerful thing, right? So we wanted to make sure that was happening. So honestly, those were really the only two cuts that we took in screening people and choosing. We really had a preconceived notion of curriculum versus tools versus business models or anything. It was really about engineering talent in kind of non-overlap of ideas, and that's how we got to 10.
And those 10, they represent all of that, the curriculum, tools,
they do
applications.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Surprisingly, I mean, they cover the gamut of the industry. Anywhere from kind of the non-sexy kind of data analysis at the district level, all the way to K through 5 games, curricula for kids outside of school. Online tutoring, host of tools for teachers. Just a wide range of things.
Okay, so very interesting. And now at the end of the summer and with the new school year, so as I said, they graduated, if you will. And let's take a step back. So you of course told us now a little bit about this whole process of working together on their projects, not necessarily being too much of a competitor or competitive teams.
Sure. Yep.
And your function, I mean, having the technology background, I think this is incredibly helpful. So, on the other hand, from the school side, how do you help them get their foot maybe initially in the door and say, maybe not only, hey, we built something great and we think that this could be really helpful for you in your situation or in your school, but do you also give them more like practical advice? Do you have a network?
Sure.
So
yeah.
what do your classes get besides the knowledge of technology, office space, I imagine?
Sure. One of the things that you were alluding to is this network, what we call our network of beta testers. So there are, we've gone out and made relationships with a bunch of folks, many in the charter school area, and as I mentioned earlier, who are utilizing technology a little more actively than others, and gathered those folks and asked them to raise their hand if they're interested in giving feedback and helping shape technology that will ultimately, we hope, get into their classrooms. So. And there's a pretty active community out there, and a lot of teachers raise their hand. And so, one of the things that we're strong believers in is this whole notion of rapid iteration of a product, right? That notion is very well understood in the consumer internet startup world. And the idea is, you create a minimal product, you get it in front of a potential user, you get feedback, and you improve that product. And so what we've done is we've gone out and created a network of these testers. So when the companies came, they immediately can start getting feedback on their product so they can start, making it better, right? Rather than guessing at what the user wants, get something up as quickly as possible, get that feedback and use that feedback as your guide to improve the product. So that's what we help our teams with. When they got here, that's one of the things. And certainly depending on whatever they needed, the three of us have spent our careers here in Silicon Valley, and we know a wide range of folks, so introducing them to other folks who could help them in different ways that we couldn't directly, something we offer. And then the three of us have been through the startup game, and so can offer all the mistakes that we made, and guide them so they don't make the same mistakes. Some simple but non-obvious things that trip up a lot of startup companies. That type of advice, can be really helpful. So,
oh yeah, I think this is very, very precious advice. And the other point you mentioned, that the K12 teacher movement, I think, is one of the most active groups, also using social media and being connected with one another. So I think a company really offering them a solution will definitely get fast feedback on that, and then see how to modify or how to make the product better. In terms of what would you say in terms of investment? Does or do some of your startups say the Imagine K12 program led us so far that we are ready to launch, or is it also that you accept some of the, let's say, so-called bigger ideas, who then maybe need to find more investment after the incubator program or accelerator?
Sure, I think all of the companies are going to need more funding than just the funding we provide. I think that's the expectation going in. The range of how old the companies are, there are a few companies that have been around for longer than a year who joined our incubator. And then there were a couple of teams that had just an idea when they joined. So it was a kind of a wide range.
So it's really possible that they can apply with really having the idea, or also with a prototype, or maybe even product, but something that needs improvement and more professionalism.
Yes, and one of the things that we help them do is work through that strategy, create a strategy that is fundable, right, by the venture capital community. And so we work with them with their product and their business strategy. And at the end of our program, it kind of culminates in what we call a demo day, which is really an investor pitch day. They get up and they give a quick pitch about what they're doing, where they're going, to a room full of investors, and then speak with them afterwards. So that's kind of, we gear them up for that day and fundraising. All except one of the products have launched. And have, are being used right now by teachers and superintendents. So, it's a pretty quick, in terms of product development cycle, it's pretty quick. And again, that's the other thing when you look at the world and what's changed recently. The cost and speed of which you can create a product has changed dramatically, right? Even in the last 5 years. And so, that is one of the things we're able to do with just a 3.5 month incubator. You can take someone from an idea to a viable product used in classrooms pretty quick. So that's great. So.
Yes, and we will, of course, also see to set up some interviews and getting to know some of your companies and what they do or what their products do more in detail. So. Without too much disclosure, I then suppose from your previous statements that they are all in the process of getting funding at the moment?
They are. They started just after, probably in the middle of September. So they've been at it. Probably this is the end of their third week doing it. So, we'll know more in probably about a month once these conversations take their normal course.
I think so too.
But I'm up in it. There is a lot of interest in education. The venture capital community has been kind of burned twice, if you will, in the 80s and then again in the late 90s. So there's interest. They know something's there. The U.S. spends a ton of money in education. But the interest is there, but they are hesitant, understandably. So it's, helping them get over that hesitancy and hopefully we can get this chicken and the egg thing started.
Yeah. So. And for you keep going with the new class, like one class after the next one, or is it that you have three programs a year, or do you organize differently?
So currently our plan is to do 2 a year. Mm-hmm. So our application for the next cohort is currently open. Mm-hmm. And that application is due at the end of October. And then that program will start in January. It's kind of a January to April time frame for the next one. And so after that, what we'll do is, we'll regroup and decide whether we want to continue to do 2 a year, maybe 1 a year of more companies. Right now, this past class was 10. Mm-hmm. Our expectation is the next one will be roughly around 10, mm-hmm. plus or minus 2. We'll gather after that and kind of make a decision on whether to continue doing 2 a year or go to 1 a year. I think mm-hmm. is probably where we're at right now.
Well, great. Then for people, startups interested or in the application process, or also generally interested in what you're doing with Imagine K12, well, I think with all of the social media and everything solutions, you're represented everywhere, so people find you. But so is it that you prefer, let's say, American founders, or do you also accept international applicants if they are willing, of course, to relocate for the program?
Sure. So this past class, out of the 10 companies, 2 came from outside the U.S., mm-hmm. One from England and one from India. Mm-hmm. So the answer is absolutely. We accept folks from other than the U.S. Our primary, what's driven the 3 of us to start this was our concern for the current state of the U.S. K-12 system. Yeah. But obviously given the new technology, it's pretty clear that whatever solution works in the U.S. or outside the U.S. is going to find its way to everyone else's education system. For the most part, that's not always true, but 80% of the time it's true.
I would agree, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it would be foolish not to look elsewhere for those solutions. And I think Silicon Valley is a great ecosystem, regardless of where you're from, to help build a company. So.
Yeah, certainly. And I think the branding is pretty stringent. So if somebody looks for Imagine K12, they will find you. However, towards the end of our nice talk, would you like to address something, or?
No, just to reiterate, we are looking for obviously people with great ideas and the engineering know-how to execute it. Right, in our application open now, and it's due at the end of October, and then we'll have an interview process late November, early December to decide on a program that starts in January. So.
Perfect, Tim. I think we learned a lot about your vision for the education system, specifically, of course, what you want to achieve with Imagine K12. And thank you so much for taking the time and doing the interview today.
Well, thanks for having me. It was good talking to you.